The first event is a campaign for Conservative Democracy, and I'm very pleased to have the Chairman, John Stafford, a long-term campaigner, and David Campbell Bannerman, the patron, and now a Conservative MEP for the East Midlands. And I think David is going to kick off.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming along at this respectable hour, 9 o'clock. The subject of today is why Chequers shows we need party reform. And we are, the CCD, the Campaign for Conservative Democracy, is very concerned with democracy within the party and how important that is and how that reflects on everything else the party does. I should say that John Stafford is a real trooper, a stalwart for the cause, generally voluntarily, and has done some great work, and as have some of the people here from Popov and Campaign for One Vote, One Person, One Vote, and CCD. So thank you for all the effort you put in. We actually had a major meeting last year, so we've been sort of effectively campaigning for a year, and I think we have made some good strides. I would say that we have to start by comparing this conference to the Labour Party conference, which was, in my view, like a 1970s tribute band, with £176 billion more spending commitments. That's 1.5 times the NHS, I would say, roughly. And some extraordinary sort of reversion to tax policies of 70s, 80s, on second homes, for example. And Derek Hatton being invited back. I mean, I'm old enough to remember what he did to Liverpool in the 80s, and there he is being welcomed back. It really is extraordinary return to the past. And it's a bit like a time-lapse video, wasn't it, when it came to the different policy. In the morning there was one Brexit policy, by lunch it was different, by tea time another one. Quite extraordinary. But it's not a joke, of course, because we have a responsibility to defeat Corbyn and ensure he never forms a government. And of course, MacDonald behind him, who is a very nasty piece of work, and there is direct action against all of us and stopping us talking. And democracy is very important to that. And I would say that the one thing Labour have got right is that there's this, by being more democratic, they've actually re-energised the Labour Party and boosted their membership massively and excited a lot of people, members, including many on the young. And meanwhile, our membership is, I understand at the moment, just shy of the SNP, the Scottish Nationalist Party. Only obviously can recruit in Scotland, though, they've tried recruiting in England. But that is a serious challenge, and membership, particularly retention of membership, is a very, very important issue. I know from my marketing background is, it takes a lot of cost to attract new customers, new consumers, or new members, but it doesn't cost very much to retain them. But if you lose them, then you go back to some very major costs. And today, by the way, is not a criticism of the current party membership. We've met Brandon Lewis and James Cleverly, the deputy of the party, and we commend them for reinvigorating the party. I think we've made some great strides in the last year. The party's more professional, it campaigns better, with campaign managers. I think that is a major step forward. Membership is rising, and membership has been centralised, rather like the National Trust. And though we in the CCD want to put associations at the heart of everything, they are the rock bed and core of everything the party does and must remain so. When it comes to membership, it makes sense to have a centralised database, and I think that that's going to bring great strides. I think the London campaign was particularly successful and wiped the smile off Labour's face. So I think we are making some great strides, and we do commend that. But we are worried about what we call a democratic deficit in the party. And that is something we want to see addressed. And what do I mean by democratic deficit? Let me just give you some examples where democracy, I think, has led to some quite bad results. We believe, by the way, our central desire is to see an elected party chairman in future. Again, there's a lot of reflection on the current chairman, but in future we should have an elected party chairman. To give you some examples where democracy actually matters, or has mattered, firstly, the election, the general election. Do you actually know, I've heard this from various senior sources, the party chairman was not even consulted about getting the general election. And I've had that from the top. And that is an extraordinary scenario, isn't it? You know, because who actually is meant to know how many candidates we have? We are 300 candidates short when we hit the general election, I understand. And the party was not ready. And what I'm saying is, we're not, you know, the Prime Minister and the government must govern and make the decisions, certainly. But the party must have a voice and must be properly consulted. And if you have an elected party chairman, I know Priti did a wonderful article, or Priti Patel did a wonderful article just recently, calling for elected party chairman, as are many actually in the party have touched on that. If you had an elected party chairman, the Prime Minister would at least have to consult about general election, don't you think? Because they would have some standing and actually be able to say, no, the party's not ready, we're not, you know, this is not a good idea, we'll do it if you really need to, but, you know, we advise you not to. And I think that is a very good example of where an elected party chairman makes all the difference. And I think an elected party chairman's job would be to represent the party to the government, not the government to the party. And I think that's very important when you think about it, because, you know, it should be, the body chairman sitting in cabinet or advising the Prime Minister should be the voice of the membership, of you, of the activists. You know, what do you think? What is important to you? And not the other way around, you know, not just be a spokesman of the government and number 10. A second example on democracy and elected party chairman is Boris Johnson in the summer being disciplined, or being sent to a party disciplining board. Now, whatever he said, yes, maybe it was offensive, but would an elected party chairman handle that differently? I think they would, he or she would. I mean, they would consult their membership because they're representing the membership, and they say, well, how do you want to handle this? Do you want a formal disciplinary board, which does cause major issues? Because it does raise the suspicion it's being done not for the benefit of the party, but actually for the benefit of the leadership. Yes. And that is worrying. It may not be correct, I'm not saying it is correct, but it is worrying, and that is not the way to proceed. So there's another example, and also I do believe in free speech. I mean, it's about the values of our party. You know, how far down the road do you want to go to suppress free speech? We may disagree, we may have found what he said offensive, but you know, how far down the road do we want to go to suppress free speech? Because it's part of our values, and it's part of democracy, to be able to express your opinions freely. And there is a third aspect where democracy really counts, and that is Chequers. And you'll get the opportunity today to vote on Chequers. I think it's the only place in the conference, or just outside the conference, where you're actually able to vote on Chequers. And please vote any way you wish. You know, if you like it, then vote for it. But you have an opportunity to vote for Chequers today, so please, please grab that. But the point about Chequers, and what we said at CCD, is we believe that the spring conference is a wasted opportunity, and it should be turned into a policy conference, the spring conference, held in a place that is more affordable for membership, such as Bournemouth or Blackpool, you know, just like the old days, the old type of conferences where you had a lot of feedback from the membership, a lot of debate and discussion. I'm not saying, we're not saying at CCD that we should bind the party. We should, like Labour do, 5 hours for a motion on Brexit. It's not the way to go. It's advisory, but it's part of the product offering, dare I say, in marketing terms, of the membership. The product offering is the opportunity to come to Spring Conference and be heard by cabinet ministers. What are your views as party members? And I think that would be incredibly engaging and be another opportunity. If this is a sales conference down the road, which is effectively what it's become, when I came back from UKIP, one thing I really noticed, I thought, well, where are all the activists? What's happened to them? This is really about presenting policies in a sort of sales conference way, and maybe that is right, and it earns 4 million a year, the conference here. But why don't we turn the Spring Conference into a policy conference where you have a chance to talk, to debate Chequers or debate Brexit and options, and make your views heard? And it's not binding, but cabinet ministers can listen to what you have to say and take away your thoughts. And that, I think, is very important. The CPC, the Conservative Political Centre, had 100% growth, apparently, according to the convention, which is great. But it shows there's a real appetite amongst members to influence policy and shape policy. Now, my own view on Chequers, just turning to Chequers, is that I think it is disastrous from the point of view of the party. I mean, the polls are really quite devastating. I think we've seen all of these, but 17% of Conservative leavers think it's the right policy that we're negotiating. That's 17%. And what really worries me, if you look at the marginals, there was a big poll, 22,000 is a big poll, into 44 marginal seats. And do you know that 1/3 of voters were less likely to back their MP because of Chequers? 1/3. If you want to put Corbyn in power, that's a great way of doing it.
Absolutely.
And it's very, very, well, it's disastrous for our party. I mean, never mind if there are merits in Chequers, and there are merits, and it's not all bad, I'm not saying it is. But that is the impact, because there's a feeling of betrayal. And I just say as anti-UKIP, UKIP went from 2%, from sort of, we've done our job, we're resting now, to 7% with Chequers overnight. It was back in business. That doesn't help us. And in the last general election, I saw it seat after seat, the UKIP vote collapsed, the Labour vote went up. And that's why it had such difficulties. So we really need to address this. I'm not going to touch today on Super Canada, which I've invented, but I've been going on about Super Canada as a free trade agreement, bigger, better, wider than the Canadian deal, which is a pretty good deal, by the way. It's 99% access to the single market without any free movement, without any costs, no fees are paid by Canada. But we can do bigger, we can do much better than that. But I'm glad that Jacob has picked up on that, Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Boris has as well. But I do believe we can get a deal, and that's what the EU wants. Barnier said to me, did you see what Mr. Juncker said, quite aggressively? Juncker said in his State of the Union speech, you cannot be in part of the single market. And that means Chequers. They don't want us messing with their 4 freedoms in the single market. And Chequers does, because goods, we stay in the single market effectively, customs union. And for the rest, services, etc., we don't. Free movement, we don't. And they don't like that. But they are, if you look at what was said on the 7th of March by President Tusk and the 2nd of August by Barnier, it is on the table, and it is a great deal, a cabinet deal. But I will leave it to you, ladies and gentlemen, because that's the whole point of today, is the process of getting there. Interested in your views on it. I will just conclude by saying I think that greater democracy is needed in the party. It does matter. The whole issue, by the way, as an MEP about the European Union is not whether you like Europe or not. I love Europe. I want a different relationship with it. But it is about democracy. And I can tell you, when you're sitting there, as I've done, when you see it at work, it is scary how undemocratic and contemptuous it is of the ordinary voter. And so it is about democracy. And I believe that by enhancing democracy in our party, I think it would bring major benefits in terms of greater unity, purpose, harmony and participation. It would strengthen our party and ensure we can take on Communist Corbyn and Nazi MacDonald and ensure we do win at the next general election. Thank you very much.